Okay, so we've come to this point here where we have our wonky 4 patches. Your next step is to trim these, or just reassure yourself that you have the measurement that you need. Remember, these should finish out to 6.5 by 7.5, and your square inset should be at the 3¼ inch mark coming into the block. So you just want to make sure that everything lines up, and I've got 3¼ here, 3¼ here. I'm perpendicular, I'm squared up on that cross seam. Those are the things that you want to look for, okay? Making sure that you've got a straight edge running down your 2 inset squares. You're at 3¼ inches in both places, and you're fairly square on the cross line as well. Now, are they going to be perfect? Probably not, and that's okay. You make the best fit, okay? And then if there's anything to trim off, you're going to take it off. And I had just a little bit on that, and it's going to be slivers.
I was going to say it was just slivers that you took off.
So I'm going to line that up again. Make sure that my measured edges, the 2 that I've already cut, are on that, under that line of reference. And I'm going to trim off anything that's left. Okay? So you need to check all of them and make sure they come up to size. If you run into a problem, as Anna just said, hers are a little shy, that means that we've got to come up with a measurement for the whole project. Your blocks are going to be different. Then they're not going to be that full 6.5 inches.
Right, I know
right.
that.
Okay. All right. So then we move on. Once you've checked all your 4 patches, we move on, and we're going to now create our half square triangle matching with our 4 patch to get this block. So you need one of these, okay, with one of your 6.5 by 7.5 inch colored squares. Do not use your background fabric or stable fabric. You're going to use all your colored fabrics. Okay, you're going to lay that on. Now this is the hard part.
So Val, I'll have to cut that one there shorter.
I wouldn't jump into cutting them just yet, okay? So we're going to lay this on. You are going to need either a 9.5 or a 12.5 inch ruler today, okay? That is the best ruler for this job. If you don't have that ruler, I'm sure that we can work out how to use this one for the same process. But our process today is to draw a line through our block as if we were doing a half square triangle. That's because that's what we're doing. We're making half square triangles. They're just a little different on the 1/2, right? We want to draw a line through that crosshairs where we've sewed our seam for our inset, okay? And then we have the same on this side. We've got 2 of them. So we're actually going to be drawing 2 lines across this unit right here, our 4 patch. Now, those lines are not going to go corner to corner, and that is going to throw you all off. You're going to be going, what the heck? So that's where this ruler really comes in handy. If you lay the ruler, and it doesn't matter which way you sewed your blocks together. I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 emails about that, and it didn't matter. It just matters when you go to draw these lines that you get things in the right place. Okay, but what you're going to do is always put the top of your diagonal, your ruler diagonal, on the edge and the top corner of your repeating fabric. Okay, so that's on that line. And if you look across, and I don't mean just at the top, I mean all the way down. Okay, you should intersect right at that point.
What if we don't?
Then you need to adjust your ruler. Yeah. Then you call Val, and she comes running.
Out that way.
Okay, and you'll notice that the end does not finish at the corner.
No.
Okay, that's correct.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to stick my pencil in, find my corner spot. Here, the hardest part for me was finding a utensil, a marking tool that I could see in my fabric. Funny enough, the other fabric, no problem. The white worked. The white does not work on this fabric because there is that, there's that faded color in there. So what I have to do is really press on my fabric, and I draw my pencil out 2 or 3 times to get a severely dark line. Okay, and I'm going to go out in this direction. Okay, now you can see it there, barely, right? I may have to redo that, but that's one side only is done. So that when I'm finished, when I pull that open, these are going to be matched up like so. Okay?
You sew on that line?
Yeah, we're going to, okay.
Okay.
So let's turn it around.
I thought you were sewing it when you did that.
We're
and I
gonna.
thought, uh-oh.
All right, turn it around. Again, my repeating fabric is in a top corner. Whether it's on the left side or the right side, it doesn't matter. You're still going to align this ruler up the same way. Okay, it's going to be either here or here, depending on where your repeating fabric is. Okay, as we come through, I'm lining this up now, and there I go, right beside my crosshairs of my seam lines, okay? And I'm approximately an inch down, but not, okay, so draw this out in this direction. Again, don't press harder, just do more strikes with your pencil, okay? Okay, so I now have 2 lines. And again, I didn't.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah. We're going to go, and we are going to sew. Typically they would say sew on the line. No, that's going to cause you some problems. You're going to cut off all your points. So what you're going to do is sew that hair's width. This is your seam allowance, all down the center. This is your seam allowance. This is your block. Okay, your half square triangle block for the project. So you want to sew just to the inside, to the seam allowance side of that pencil line.
Would that be like an 1/8 bell?
Not even. No. Like
Oh,
a couple of thread widths. This is like your scant seam, okay? Using your foot, and figure out how to use your foot. I've figured out how to use my foot to get just inside that line, so that as I pass through, because the most important thing is we want to pass through just inside those seam lines.
So this point shows up.
So the point shows. You don't cut that point off, exactly. And I have some finished ones. No, sewn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here's one.
Okay? Yeah. So, I tried to sew inside that pencil line, especially when I crossed over here. This one's, so that when I open it, and you want to check before you cut, because if you've done it, if you've given yourself too much room, that's not good either. Okay, because you want this to be 3 1/4 inches in this direction, okay, from both sides when you finish putting this thing together, as best you can. And I'm going to cut this one right now. So anyway, so I've sewn down just inside of my pencil line on both sides of my block, and the inside meaning into the seam allowance. This is seam allowance here. Okay, that's what I mean by inside.
Wow.
This is also, you can see that this is bigger than a 1/2 inch. When I trimmed, I actually measured off of my thread line the 1/4 inch, okay? Or less, just shy of that. Okay, and then I turn it around. You can see that that's a big seam allowance in one spot. A little off my mark there. I trimmed them all.
Did you sew both your lines?
Yes.
One this way and one the other way?
Yes.
Okay.
However, when you're comfortable, when you've done a couple and you really understand what you're doing, go ahead and chain several of them, and then turn the whole chain around and go back in the other direction. When you get comfortable that you have got the technique down, that you've figured out how you're sewing. And I guarantee you, and I only tell you stuff that I've experienced myself, right? I guarantee at some point you're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that line.
Yeah, yes, of course. Of
When you
course.
should be sewing just inside that line. Okay, so then we're going to press, okay, and we're going to press to the flat rectangle, or the flat triangle, of course. You always want to press to the path of least resistance. And if we need to make changes later, we will. But that is, both of these are going to go to the ironing board. And again, when we press half square triangles, we press in line with what we believe to be the grain of the fabric. Okay, we do not press along that seam line. And so your final product will be several of these blocks, several of these mixed up half square triangles. They'll be lovely.
And Val, how do we choose? Or do we even
Just
bother
when
do
you
it
go to put,
randomly
yeah, when you go to
choose
grab
that?
this, for instance, I would not put this with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would find something else to use for it, and I do. I still have some left over. Yes, like I mean, anything that's not on here, that's what you put it with. Okay, okay, to mix it up. And I got, you know, I have a couple more to go. So this one I put with pink. And just like I said, just do a quick check. You know, as you're working through these, how are you doing with your sewing? Because it's really important that you don't cut those corners off, and it's equally important that you don't have wide open space there when you're working through your half square triangle. So, are we good to go? Are you ready to take? So first step, okay, you're going to trim those 4 patches. Just you're checking them for size, okay?
6.5 by 7.5.
Yes.
To match these
If you
guys.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to
Well,
make
I-
sure.
And I
haven't
didn't take
tried
much
yet.
off. I took like, so my